Now, members of Parliament returned back to Westminster today after the May Day recess, and there was a new face on the Green benches. Of course, that's Reform UK's Sarah Pochin. She made her debut in the Commons after winning that historic Runcorn and Helsby by-election, incredibly by a wafer-thin 6 votes. Now, her narrow victory makes her Reform's 5th MP and notably the party's first female representative in the Houses of Parliament. Here is that great moment when she was sworn in earlier on today.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Wonderful stuff. Now, this comes, of course, as Tory and Labour MPs return to Westminster, licking their wounds after a severely bruising local election results, while the Liberal Democrats and the Greens are buoyed along by strong gains. Now, I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by Sarah Pochin, the new Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby, in a TV first sit-down interview. Sarah, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome to GB News. I hope one of many appearances on the channel. You're watching yourself, Sarah, on the screen there, being sworn in as an MP. You said you weren't nervous.
Well, actually, I wasn't nervous. It was the most monumental day for me, but a day that I feel is absolutely what I should be doing. It's the right thing for me now, and I can't wait to start work. So it was very humbling to walk into the chamber. I had been in earlier because I think if I'd have walked straight in and just taken the oath, I would have probably felt very overcome. But I went in earlier and at that point I thought, gosh, we've really done it. This is real and the work starts now.
What motivated you to get into politics? One of the things about Reform UK, a lot of people in the party aren't career politicians. You had a successful career before this. You're a justice of the peace, you're a magistrate, you've worked for Shell, you read banking and finance at Loughborough University. You didn't have to do politics.
No.
Why did you?
No. Well, I did. I've done probably 20 years of public service following my sort of corporate career. 20 years as a magistrate, and I actually resigned to fight this campaign, and also 8 years as a borough councillor. So I suppose I've given 20 years of my life already to public service, and it makes you really feel very strongly about changing things for people that don't have a strong voice. And I do have a strong voice, and I am able to make changes. The magistracy side of it makes you really understand how tough life is for some people. People are not always born, they're not born bad. They get themselves into difficult situations. So you learn to have a huge amount of compassion for people, understanding, and often it's about housing, it's about a stable job, money in their pockets. And that combined with my experience as a councillor, I've got so much to offer. And then, obviously, Nigel Farage was coming through with this incredible party. And I guess I just thought, you know what, I can't resist this. I have to get involved because the country really needs good people that are in it for the right reasons.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private internet access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Runcorn and Helsby was a very, very closely fought thing. I mean, the count started at 2:30 in the morning, went on for about 4 hours. It was a cigarette paper in the end. It's a seat that's been Labour forever. I think at the time it was 16th safest Labour seat in the country. What do you think it was about Runcorn and Helsby that signified the call for change in policy? What happened there?
The people of Runcorn and Helsby is a beautiful. I mean, I should also say Frodsham. I feel like the constituency should have been called Runcorn, Helsby, and Frodsham. It's a real constituency of two tales. So you have a beautiful rural, leafy part of the constituency, and then you have Runcorn. And Runcorn itself, very strong, traditionally Labour vote. That's where the Labour vote came from. But those people feel so let down by this Labour government.
What kind of things were they talking about? The winter fuel allowance seemed to come up a lot. There's been a lot of talk from the Labour Party after the election about that. Came a lot on the doorstep.
Came up a lot on the doorstep, and we also had a campaign office. We were the only party to have a campaign office. We were getting, on average, 50 people a day coming to see me, almost as though I was already elected, because they wanted to tell me their problems. So the big problems, the winter fuel allowance came up time and time again, as did just the general cost of living. So Labour promised all of us a decrease in our energy bills of £300. In fact, it's gone completely the other way. You know, people do not have money in their pocket. Then we have the situation with businesses, with the national insurance costs that were put onto businesses, the rise in the minimum wage. So it was like, whichever way you look, people felt really, really damaged by this Labour government already very, very quickly.
Now, there are only 5 MPs for Reform UK. What can you guys do to change the country? It's easy being in opposition, is it not? What's your plan for change? Particularly, you've been openly vocal at the moment about women's issues. Of course, Absolutely. You're the first woman elected for the Reform Party. You've been outspoken. It's raised a few feathers. You've ruffled a few feathers, talking about potentially the threat to women's safety from asylum seekers in hotels. Some people said that was a bit divisive, just spoken out about.
The first thing I should say is I'm not discussing women's issues or promoting this issue because I'm a woman. My background is very much law and order, and I feel very strongly that in this constituency there's a real problem with women's safety that is utterly being denied by the Labour, the previous Labour administration and the MP. So the fact is that Runcorn has an increasing problem with illegal immigrants that are being housed, first of all, in a migrant hotel. Labour U-turned on that during the election and said they'd shut it down. I feel that was because of constant pressure from Reform raising these issues on behalf of people, as I say, who don't have their own voice.
Now, Sarah, the Labour Party would deny that there's specifically an issue about women's safety due to asylum seekers in the area. Is there any proof of that? Or were you hearing stories of this on the campaign trail? How do you come to that conclusion?
Absolutely. So people would come into the office, women, telling me that they felt unsafe walking around their streets, felt that they couldn't let their children out to play, particularly daughters. Stories of illegal immigrants filming children, really horrific stuff. And also, I saw CCTV that had been taken to the police, but nevertheless, CCTV was shown to us of gangs at night in these houses of multiple occupancy, so private landlord accommodation that illegal immigrants are living in, drug dealing clearly going on, men turning up with knives, very, very threatening behaviour for in a street where, you have normal, decent families, hardworking, decent families, and they suddenly find themselves next door to a house like this.
And yet, Sarah, in the immediate aftermath of your victory, Nigel Farage was asked about this by a journalist who said it was divisive. You were attempting to cause division in the area by talking about this.
It's not divisive, it's brave. And we need to stand up and talk about this. And this is exactly what reform does, because this is an increasing problem that if it's not tackled, these illegal immigrants, once they go into private housing, they disappear into the community. You know, there's no way to trace them. So, you know, they go from these migrant hotels, which Labour says they're going to shut. Well, what are they doing? So it is a dangerous issue. And I will stand up for these women that feel threatened.
Can I ask you about, you were previously Conservative. What was it about, was it just the death of the Conservative Party? For example, would you still be with the Conservatives, do you think, if Boris Johnson was still at the helm?
The Conservatives, I was a Brexiteer, a big, strong and proud Brexiteer. The Conservatives didn't ever, in my opinion, maximise that. Far from it. I feel like we almost haven't even started that process. So that was one big disappointment for me. But also the Conservatives seem best at destroying themselves. And the endless infighting. I mean, how many prime ministers did we have in a ridiculously short space of time? It was, you know, I think the electorate, and I include myself in that, absolutely tired of this infighting, self-destruction, and they're not in it for the right reasons. I'm in politics because I want to stand up for people that don't have a voice. But the Conservatives are more interested in destroying themselves than standing up for other people.
Sarah, can I ask you about a controversial policy that's been floated out already, and that is the removal of so-called woke flags from town halls, from councils that the Reform Party will be controlling? Pride flags, trans flags, Black Lives Matter flags. Why does that matter to the Reform Party?
It matters because the flag that we should be flying is the British flag. I'm very proud to be British. My father was in the army. I was brought up in a very proud household, and that seems to be disappearing from our society. In fact, I'd go further and say we're being taught to almost apologise for our British roots. No, Reform have said enough is enough. You know, you can stand up and be proud to be British. Somebody has to say this, because otherwise our culture is under threat.
Sarah, you were keen before we came in to talk about the deal that's been done today by the Labour Party. The Labour Party, to be fair to them, have done a trade deal with India, the source of which, no doubt, Nigel Farage, the Reform Party, Boris Johnson's regime, would have been proud of. What's your comments on that trade deal today that Labour forged with India, worth £5 billion to the British economy?
Well, I think what is not being said is that Labour once again have sold out British workers, because this deal, the detail, and the devil's always in the detail, is all about Indian workers can come into this country, and for 3 years they don't have to pay any national insurance, and the companies that employ them and bring them in are also free of the company national insurance. So there's a double win for this situation.
Labour would say that stimulates the economy. We need more of those skilled workers.
What that's going to do is destroy jobs for British workers. So they're selling out the British workers once again, because it's going to make it so much cheaper, 20% cheaper, for companies to employ Indian workers. And then when they come over, there's a drain on our resources. So you've got the NHS to think about, you've got dentists to think about, yet again, housing to think about. So yet again, local people are being pushed down, whether it's going to be housing list, GP list, whatever it might be. But this situation, this is an absolutely dreadful deal. So on the surface, it might look like, yes, we've done this great deal with India, but what's behind it? And this is selling out British workers.
Some people might say in response to that, Sarah Pochin, that the Reform Party seems to have a problem with foreign workers. Is that fair?
Absolutely not. If people come in with something to offer on fair terms, what the Reform Party is about is fairness, and people want to feel that someone is standing up for fairness. This is not fair. This is not fair on British workers who will not get these jobs because they will be classed as too expensive. It's not fair on companies that are not suitable for importing, if you like, Indian workers. So this is a policy that is totally flawed, and once again is letting down the true hard-working people of this country.
You talk a great fight It's easy, of course, being an opposition. Sir Keir Starmer found that, to his peril. Perhaps now in power, things are much tougher. There are 5 of you. You've got a mountain to climb. How optimistic are you that this isn't just a flash in the pan, that you can forge on? And Zia Youssef, very bold, very brash. He's convinced Nigel Farage can become the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Do you echo that sentiment? Can Farage be the Prime Minister?
Absolutely. I always said that winning in Runcorn and Helsby, and I had never had any doubt that we would win, because we didn't win by 6 votes. We won by 14,706 votes, or, whatever the majority that Labour had. That is a monumental achievement. But what it shows now is that people are fed up with the Tories, fed up with Labour. They need someone to vote for. They need a party that's going to bring them hope, that's going to stand up for British values. And I really believe that, and look at the rest of the country. I mean, it went turquoise when it comes to councillors. We've got over 600 new councillors, 2 mayors elected. The country is going turquoise because people have had enough.
It's going to get tough. It's going to get ugly. The entire establishment will no doubt throw everything it has to stop reform getting into power. Are you ready for that battle, Sarah Pochin?
Absolutely, otherwise I wouldn't be sat here.
Fantastic, Sarah Pochin. Thank you so much for joining us, MP for Runcorn and Helsby. And well done today on being sworn in as Reform's 5th MP and the first